Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a major update here today in regards to the future situation of U.S. politics. And it's a very bad update for the Democrats, as we've been talking about this. Once the census updates in 2030, putting aside the illegals being counted, and maybe Trump's able to change that, maybe he's not, just in general, with the migration out of the liberal states into the conservative ones, we are seeing a significant realignment, even from a conservative level, that will benefit Republicans guaranteed. Now, to what level, we're not sure because we can't completely predict migration trends for the next 4 or 5 years, as the census will not be updating until 2030. Although you could argue there does need to be a mid census update because the 2020 numbers were done wrong, but that's neither here nor there. Let's take a look at this article. New York Times goes through it. And remember, New York Times did a similar, bigger investigation into the voter registration and how Pennsylvania is swinging to the right and Florida's completely gone for liberals. And the voter registration is pretty much every state. It is very positive. So they do that article, and then they do one on this. This is a big story. How the Electoral College could tilt further from Democrats. California, Illinois, New York, Rhode Island. Rhode Island already should have lost an electoral vote. Ron DeSantis has talked about that several times. They were given one because of a miscount in the 2020 census. So they're going to lose one no matter what. You've got Texas, Utah, Idaho, Florida. These are all very, very dark red states gaining electoral votes. These are dark blue states losing electoral votes, losing representation within Congress in terms of the House, as well as the very important electoral college votes. On top of it, we've got Nebraska possibly redistricting. That's going to cut off another electoral vote from the Democrats that they've been able to siphon off of Republicans, even with Republicans winning the state of Nebraska by 30 points because of the way in which Nebraska does their national election in terms of the congressional districts and not winner take all. But let's see the actual numbers here. You've got Texas gaining 3. This is the projection in 2032. It's going to be done in 2030, but we have the 2028 election. We'll see if there's any movement there. There's probably not going to be, outside of maybe Nebraska. Nebraska might, and that's not a census-related thing. It's a redistricting thing that may push Nebraska for Republicans to gain one more electoral vote over Democrats. So it'd be a 2 electoral vote swing. It'd be taking one away from the Democrats and giving it to the Republicans. And it is true that the Republicans can potentially be competitive in that district, the Omaha district, which right now has been won by the Democrats the previous few elections. But either way, this is for 2032. That's why they say in 2032. It's going to be updated in 2030, but you've got to wait for into terms of the electoral votes, the verbiage of that's going to be important in 2032. You've got the 2028 election. We'll see what happens with that. Right now, I would say it's too early. Republicans probably the favorites. They say, well, the incumbent advantage, it's not working out well worldwide. Yeah, I think that people are reading too much into it. I do think there is a trend where, because of social media, people are very reactionary and they always want something new. And so no matter who's in office, they hate because it's easier to hate because of social media. It's a hive mind, and then they want the opposite. There is a trend going around about that, but look, we're not going to sit here and say, oh, Republicans are going to lose in 2028. You don't know. I would say Republicans, they're favorites in 2028 at this point. It's probably going to be Vance against Newsom, but it's way too early to predict. Florida gaining 2. So Texas gaining 3, Florida gaining 2, Utah gaining 1, Idaho gaining 1. There's been a lot of migration to Idaho. Based on how low their population is, they're adding a bunch of people. And a lot of those people are coming from California and other West Coast like states, Washington State, Oregon. States losing. So where are these states taking from? They're taking from New York. They're going to lose 1, possibly more if Mondani gets elected. California is going to lose 3. Possibly more. Imagine they don't count illegals. They'd probably lose 5 or 6. People say maybe even more than that. Depends how many illegals you think are in this country. I saw a new report on the illegals. They said, well, it's about 15 million. But it was like an estimate. It was like 11 to 15 million. I've heard it's probably about 20 to 25 million illegals. And that's me being nice to liberals who say there's less. They always underestimate it. but conservatives say there's over 50 million illegals. I say it's about 20 to 25 million, and there's many million in California. I think California, you don't count illegals, and you shouldn't count illegals. There's no real reason to give illegals. It's not even giving them representation. It's just based off a state's population in terms of how much power they get nationally. That doesn't make any sense to count illegals. Illegals cannot vote. Supposedly, if they can't vote, why would their representation be counted to give a certain state more power? Why would we reward states for harboring illegal immigrants? It doesn't make any sense, because that's what it is. You're giving them more power because they've got a bigger population. If you've got 3 or 4 million illegals on top of 30 million people, now you've got 34 million people in total. That's how the electoral votes are divvied up, based off of total population, not based off of citizen. It's not a citizenship thing. California losing 3, Midwestern states like Minnesota and Pennsylvania could also lose. And by the way, they say Minnesota's the swing state. Recently, Minnesota, it's a liberal state. So that's another liberal state that they're losing. Now, Minnesota is closer. Trump barely lost it in 2016. He lost by like 8 or 9 in 2020. And based off of the environment, I mean, it was a good performance in 2024, but relative to other states, it was like, what did he lose it by, 4 or 5? I mean, it wasn't like it was crazy close. So Minnesota is another liberal state. Now, again, it's more of a tilt or a lighter blue, but I mean, it's a liberal state at this point. Pennsylvania is a pure swing state, and it's still going to be very important, whether it loses one electoral vote or not. So you can see this goes through all of the different paths to victory. And I guess you can look at this and see, and what is this? So this compares Democrats winning in 2024, but Republicans winning in 2032. This is based on state. So basically, this is kind of a weird thing in the way they're doing this. I don't think this is represented very well. They should have done a map is what they should have done. But this basically shows that the Democrats, I believe, could win the Rust Belt, but still lose. And this is the Rust Belt without Ohio, because they've already lost Ohio. Ohio's gone. It's the 3 Rust Belt states if they win all of them. But if this migration holds to where Republican states get more electoral votes, them winning those states will not matter. The only trepidation on that is the fact that Georgia is getting more liberal. And so that becomes a bit of a problem. But like, to me, Minnesota is already, you have to put Minnesota in the liberal category. Let's say in this instance, Democrats win Wisconsin. I mean, New Hampshire is it's a more liberal state. I don't think Republicans win that. You give Democrats Pennsylvania, you give Republicans Georgia, you give Republicans Arizona, and wow. So this is and it's North Carolina. Yeah. So this is, I mean, some of these states they're including, like Minnesota, New Hampshire, those are not traditionally, swing states, but this is with the Democrats winning Wisconsin, the Democrats winning Michigan, the Democrats winning Pennsylvania. In 2024, they would have barely won. In 2032, Republicans win very easily. You could also have, well, I guess you couldn't do that. So this just illustrates, it goes to show that, and by the way, this is a very conservative estimate in terms of the way that the migration is swinging in these states. Yes, it is true that there was more aggressive migration in 2021 and 2022 as a byproduct of the pandemic, and a lot of people were moving into conservative states for more freedom. But still, you're probably going to get even more electoral, rather than this swing of 14 electoral votes, because that's what it is. If the Democrats are losing 7 and Republicans are gaining, or what is it, Republicans gaining 6 and then one's a swing, like Pennsylvania's a swing, or maybe it is, I think it is Democrats losing 7, Republicans gaining 7, and then a few swings, but also you have Minnesota. So the idea is, in this scenario, I mean, if Republicans win Pennsylvania in a scenario like this, you lose Georgia. 2024, they barely win. 2032, they win very easily. And so this is with Republicans losing Wisconsin, losing Michigan, losing Georgia, winning Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, and Arizona. So it is, it does illustrate a decent swing in terms of, I mean, I guess they would still win in 2024. Georgia, to me, is going to be a tough one. I still think Pennsylvania, even with this, because this is only I say only, it is big. It's 14 electoral votes. But Pennsylvania is still going to be a very, very big state. North Carolina is still going to be an extremely big state. I think Arizona is kind of trending to being a more Republican state. You can't say that though for sure because it's only been one election, but you win a state by 5.5 points, 6 points. We saw with Ohio back in 2016, you know, everyone thought it was going to be a swing state. Trump wins it by 8 points. They say, well, it's still a swing state in 2020. Trump wins it by 8 points again. Arizona swings 5.5, 6 points to the Republicans in 2024. We'll see what happens in 28. Maybe they'll win it by 5 or 6 points, and maybe it becomes more of a Republican state after that. So we'll have to see. But, this just illustrates the breathing room that Republicans could have. I mean, I guess you could do something like that but that doesn't really make sense. I mean, this concoction would be Republicans winning Michigan but losing Pennsylvania. They lose in 2024, but they win in 2032. That's what this is trying to illustrate. It's like pathways for Republicans. I mean, the main one is, and liberals, again, they would argue this, but the main one would be, this is the liberals sweeping the Rust Belt. Now, see, this is interesting. Well, I mean, because even in 2024, I mean, imagine if that congressional district in Nebraska didn't exist or was gerrymandered, Republicans would win because it's a swing. Or no, it would be a tie. It'd be tied 269, I guess, if that happened. But this is with the Dems sweeping the Rust Belt, but losing Georgia, losing Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina. Dems barely win. Republicans win with some breathing room by 16 electoral votes in 2032. So that's the sweeping of the Rust Belt not mattering. But you do also have the Georgia factor where it is getting more liberal. Yes, Trump just won it. It's very close. We'll have to, I mean, it's a pure swing state. It's like North Carolina, but you could maybe make an argument North Carolina is more bullish for Republicans than Georgia is in the future based off of the trends that we're seeing. But we're really splitting hairs. I mean, you don't know for sure. It depends on the type of candidate the Democrats put up in 2028. So this is another, I mean, you're not Republicans winning New Hampshire though. Republicans winning Minnesota. Like when you're including Minnesota, I just don't really view Minnesota as a swing state. I don't really view New Hampshire. Okay. What was it? A 4-point Dem win? It's a very independent state, New Hampshire, but I mean, I would still characterize it as it's more of a liberal state. I don't really characterize New Hampshire as a swing state. Maybe I should. I don't know. We'll have to see some of the polls going into 2028. So this is the overall change that I showed this yesterday. This is 3, 5, 7. So that's 7. I would say even 8. I would say Dems losing 8 electoral votes because Minnesota I classify as it's a liberal state right now. So they're losing 8. Republicans gaining 7. They lose 8. Republicans gain 7. Georgia adds 1. Arizona adds 1. And you could argue Arizona possibly is becoming more conservative. Albeit it was a very good environment for Trump in 2024. It's a 5.5-point victory. You can't really say it for sure. We're going to have to see what happens in 2028. But you can make an argument maybe Arizona is becoming more conservative. Pennsylvania losing. Pennsylvania is a pure swing state. Georgia, I would say, is a pure swing state. We could do without Georgia getting more electoral power, though. But, I mean, it's just one electoral vote. So this is just great. I mean, Republicans are going to swing. This is going to swing for like at least 15 or 16. And these are the conservative estimates. We've got other estimates that say California is going to lose 4. Texas is going to gain, what is it? Texas gaining 4, Florida gaining 3. They say Texas gains 4, Florida gains 3. I think there were other states possibly involved, the Republican states that were going to gain as well. It might have been, no, it wasn't Montana. Definitely Idaho gaining 1. I know a lot of people moving to Idaho. Personally, I don't know a lot of people, but I've seen stories of it. I've also heard North Carolina is a place that a lot of people are going. I don't know if maybe there's migration in and out, so it cancels it out, but these are mainly Republican states. I mean, certainly we know with Florida, the migration there in the early 2020s. So this is going to have an effect. Now, it's not going to be impossible for Democrats because you maybe have Georgia opening up, being more electorally favorable in the early 2030s with the migration into it. That's big. That's possibly going to be 17 electoral votes. But the paths are so much better for Republicans. And imagine we stop this immigration and just, I mean, they're not going to be able to replace the voters. They're not going to have any voters left. They're going to be shut out. I mean, this is the first year we've had net negative migration in over 50 years. Their voters are getting shut out of the country. They're getting locked out of the country. and so, listen, it's going to be very tough for them. 2028, maybe we get the redistricting or something happens with Nebraska. There's going to be a big push to try and I mean, look, you can go ahead and make Nebraska and Maine winner take all. I'm fine with it. Preferably, Maine stays congressional districts because we want to siphon one off. We want to siphon one off, but we will take the switch in Nebraska. We can make Nebraska winner take all or gerrymander it to hell and just make it to where all 5 districts are clearly conservative. So, I mean, that's the idea with that. But I don't know. Maybe Maine can go ahead and make it winner take all. If Nebraska does, that's fine. I think it's better they're all winner take all anyways. So they're all in alignment. But this is, listen, and New York Times is having to talk about this, and they're saying all the winning scenarios. And again, you're including Minnesota. Okay, well, they say of Minnesota. So these are the interesting winning scenarios, I guess. 2024, Dems win by 1. I think this is the one that I showed. That's winning the Rust Belt. Republicans win by 8 in 2032. But that's also Republicans winning Georgia and North Carolina. Those are highly contested swing states. This is another one. But this one doesn't make any sense. Like, I can't see. Well, they're very close, but I just feel like if Republicans win Pennsylvania. Oh, no. That's not the scenario. This is the scenario. If Republicans lose Pennsylvania, I don't think they're going to win Michigan. Yeah, I don't think they would win Michigan. Well, I guess that's not what this is. Show all 66 scenarios. Yeah, I don't know about this, man. I'm not going to take a look at that, but that's a bit much. But either way, guys, the point of this is there's more opportunities, there's more maps. And again, this is conservative. Some people say Texas is going to be a +4. Florida's going to be a +3. California is going to be a -4. New York, -1 is a very low estimate. I have not seen them only losing a sink. Now, look, we'll see what happens. But in all the estimates I've seen outside of this New York Times one, they should lose at least 2. But with Mondani, they might lose 3 or 4. They might lose 3 or 4 with Mondani. So imagine that. And then just more people move to Florida with the weather, and you might get some people moving to North Carolina, to Georgia, California. I mean, imagine Trump's able to change it. Really, Trump needs to push for this. I mean, this is what I think. The census counting illegals is very similar to national voter ID. There's no argument against it, but it still doesn't happen. There's no argument against counting illegals. Well, the thing is you can count illegals in the census so you know how many people are in each state because they say that's such an important thing. But why would the illegals be counted in terms of giving states more power on a national level for an election? What sense does that make? Why would you incentivize illegals occupying states so they could get more power? I don't understand this. And of course, this is stuff that gets put in before we have 20 or 30 million illegals in the country. They never thought that it was going to get this bad to where there would be this problem. It's just like the 14th Amendment, where it's based on slavery and giving slaves rights. And now they swing it and make it about, anyone that's born in the United States, even in any circumstance with illegal parents, they're citizens, and you're disgusting and you're racist if you challenge it. No, that was not the point of the 14th Amendment. And then they say, well, the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment is the goal of the Second Amendment. It's the exact same goal as it was when it was created, to limit government authority by having an armed citizenry. So it serves the same purpose, but the 14th Amendment is inherently different on how it's factored in today versus when it was put on. We're not dealing with millions of immigrants migrating to the United States illegally when the 14th Amendment goes into place in the mid 1850s or 1860s, like 1866. So it's a complete false equivalency, but this is, we want to stay focused on this. So the point of it is this is a good swing. Everybody can see it. Everybody knows it. You look at 2028. What are the options? Because this is 2030. So what are the options? Well, you redistrict. You gain one more electoral vote in Nebraska. You try and challenge the counting of illegals, although that's probably going to be in vain. I don't see that going through, unfortunately, as annoying as it is. But you try and challenge that. You say that, well, the census needs to be recounted because we have done the autopsy. They have admitted, and I've gone over this, in, 5 out of the 7 or 5 out of the 8 states that were undercounted, they were pure Republican states. They were ruby red. 6 out of the 8 that were overrepresented were dark blue states. They overcounted liberal states. And listen, this is a low end. It's 2 electoral votes that should go to it's a 4 electoral vote swing. Rhode Island has one too many electoral votes, and it's like another northeastern state. It's like Vermont or Massachusetts that has one too many electoral votes. Florida should have another electoral vote. That's a red state. And then it's like, I don't know, Mississippi or something. I don't even know. But it's another Republican state that should have one more. So Trump needs to challenge that. And they were talking about challenging that if it was a close election and Trump lost. But there's things that you can challenge because Republicans have just gotten completely screwed on the way the census was counted. And it's not even just the illegals, because then they tried coping and saying, well, there's actually more illegals in Republican states because of Texas and the population and it borders Mexico and also Florida. No, that's been proven to be wrong. The most illegals are in Illinois, New York, California. Yeah, there are illegals in Florida and Texas, but it's not the same level. It's not the same amount. So that's the real difference there. And look, we'll see what happens with all of this. But, when it comes to 2030, we know it's going to be very, very good for Republicans. Guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Also, follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.